this is about a different drive from the top in terms of what the operating model is, right? Because if people are reluctant to change or don't have an imprint of what that new way of working might be like, then it really is going to come down to how the leadership works together.
Everything comes from the top. It should do.
Yeah.
The culture, the objectives, everything that we do as a company, if it doesn't start there, we're going to have a challenge.
Well, what we're seeing though is there's a resistance to that. A lot of the change is actually originating at the opposite, at the bottom. People are changing the way that they're working because the way they're doing it at the moment isn't working. They're finding new ways of doing it. They're finding new ways of collaborating. And it's that kind of groundswell. But we've got to connect that with leadership. And leadership's got to realize that the world is changing. And it's changing faster than organizations are. A lot of that's being driven by technology. Technology changes at an exponential rate. But organizations change logarithmically. So there's a disconnect, and we've got to bridge that, because otherwise we're going to be out of tune with our customers and our audiences.
Just struck me as you said it, this is like the worst time to be a middle manager, because when you have that kind of people who actually do the work on the ground, wanting to change, trying new things, and then you've got a leadership that are trying to understand new models and new ways of leading, that if you're stuck in the middle, you've got the old and the new.
Absolutely.
It's very tricky, right?
And the way that we're being trained to be managers, going back, it's this old world view. It's about command and control. It's about telling people how to do things. Whereas leadership today and management today needs to be much more servant. It's about how do you create the conditions, how do you create the environment for your teams to succeed, and then empower them to do that. They are in the best place to work out what to do. They're at the coalface. And it's about how do you create that environment for them to actually then succeed and operate.
So James, just thinking about that, does that require a different set of leadership skills and a commonality of leadership skills?
I think I don't think the leadership skills have sort of changed over the years, to be honest with you. If I think about the role I play, back to your point around, is it the worst time to be a middle manager? I think it's probably a very important time to be a middle manager, whatever a middle manager is, but that kind of connection between people that are doing the work, and executing, and sort of the leadership. I mean, for me at Dropbox, we're about 2,500 people, so it's a significant organization. The marketing team's probably around 130 people. But it is, what we find that is really important is not just the connections within marketing, but outside marketing as well. So it's this kind of the skill set for me that I look for when we're hiring people, or I look for in somebody that is going to be, this middle manager, is somebody that can connect other parts of the company. And we talk about this kind of cross-functional leadership skills, of being able to, really pull together the functions of whether it's CX, product. We started this conversation talking about frictionless experience or frictionless sale. We're trying to up-level that now and have a conversation which means a complete frictionless experience for the customer, right? So that's their interaction with the product, which to me is the first sort of bar in terms of creating frictionless experience. But then it comes down to marketing, it comes down to sales, it comes down to CX, all those functions. So the ability to be able to connect those, and from time to time as marketing leaders, we have to do more of the legwork there in doing that connection. But this kind of cross-functional leadership, I think, is really important.
Does that mean that in terms of the talent then that we're trying to hire for, we're looking for more breadth and depth rather than kind of traditional career paths where you stay within a very specific aspect of marketing?
Yeah, I think possibly. I mean, I think, to reflect what James and John have said here, that, I think marketing play a real role in bringing alignment throughout the business, right? And aligning the company around its customers. I was trained, my first job out of university 20 years ago, that our marketing and salespeople had to be the eyes and the ears of the organization. And I think that's why I don't like this argument about sales and marketing alignment, or even the topic, because it's moot. It's beyond the point. It's actually, what are all the things we're doing to align behind the customer? And to that extent, I think we need our marketers to probably be, or our upstream marketers to be a little bit less promotional and take a real role in driving the vision of the company, enunciating the values, and actually supporting our CEOs in doing that. It's a paradigm shift for marketing itself.
Yeah. And at all levels in marketing, working closely with our sales colleagues in terms of articulating the value of marketing. And the best thing to do that is in terms of the pipeline effectively in terms of, okay, this is what the marketing programs that we have done over the last X months have delivered to you. Then, in my experience, sales get it. Right, okay, so I do need to work with marketing to follow up on this event, this campaign, etc., so that you are able to make a business case for more funding in X region. And it's continual. You need to work with sales, in my opinion, on a continual basis. And then they will feel like more, okay, it is a partnership, and I need to provide this input back to marketing so they can work to get additional funds, additional campaigns, or to serve this market. And that just needs to happen on an ongoing basis. And that's certainly something that I instill into the team, but also instill into me on a regular basis.
So do you think that good marketing can reduce the enterprise sales cycle, make it faster?
Yes, I can, in terms of nurturing opportunities through the funnel. I've seen that to good effect at TraceLink, where we have nurtured leads from 20%, 30% in the funnel right through to closure, whether it be from additional content or participation in additional events, whatever the tactics. Yes, I do think that because, no disrespect to sales, I can't rely on sales just to be following up on activities in the funnel, because sometimes they don't get followed up for a variety of reasons. More often than not, it might be a glitch in the system.
Yeah.
And unless you dig into it to find out why these opportunities haven't been followed up, you're never going to know the real answer behind it. And by getting into the weeds, as we say at TraceLink, you won't know until you've actually dug into it, and you can then use those as proof points to go back to sales. So
it's a kind of surround sound and continued engagement.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, a few years back, 5-10 years back, it was all around just pipeline generation.
Yeah.
So the job of marketing, generate pipeline, it's got a job done, let's move on to the next thing to generate pipeline. And over the last few years, I've seen changes in the way that, marketing is measured. So we now have a metric or a goal around closed won revenue, right? Which historically I would never have taken. I'm like,
can you explain that?
Yeah. So, we'll generate pipeline to a certain stage. We use Salesforce, so a certain stage in Salesforce, but there's no point generating X million dollars worth of pipeline if nothing's closing.
Yeah.
Right. So our closed won metric is a proxy for the quality of the pipeline that we're generating.
Yeah.
Right. And then, back to your point, you're kind of looking at the full funnel, and we have this kind of funnel physics kind of mentality. So from top of funnel, middle to bottom, and closed won. And you have to kind of be forensic, as you say, in terms of really understanding what the reasons of the blockers are for pipeline not kind of progressing. So I think it's a real shift to me from just focusing on pipeline or brand awareness or those kind of things to really kind of working with sales through the entire sales cycle. I mean, I've worked at companies that have sales cycles for 2 years versus, a month versus 6 months. Our sales cycle at Dropbox tends to be sort of not as significant, as long as a typical enterprise sales cycle. So the role of marketing actually is even more important in terms of that sort of length of the sales cycle and how we get involved in that. So, and we also have, back to the original question, in terms of should sales and marketing be together, we're seeing this kind of intersection as well of roles that could be sales and could be marketing.
Yeah.
Right. So we have whether SDRs, LDRs, BDRs. We're having a debate at the moment as should there be a marketing.
Okay, that was 3 acronyms. Unpack them.
But they're kind of all the same. They're like lead development reps, sales development reps. So they're kind of like the lead catcher, the sales catcher. A more junior sort of sales role. So I think we are doing all we can in terms of better targeting industries, personas to surface better leads that close better.
Yeah.
Our best source of leads are inbound leads.
Yeah.
They tend to close better as well. But it's back to this kind of forensic kind of mentality, which is follow all the way through the sales cycle, right to the end. So.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity now for the marketeers to really market to the salespeople, in essence. So, when we look at can we accelerate the sales cycle, it's not just about closing that deal, because now we're looking at the lifetime value of a customer. So this is where marketing now is really kicking in terms of, what does the brand mean to, to the customer, but doing some really interesting things, for example, looking at social selling. So one of the things that we've looked at doing, especially with relating to the pipeline, is creating a LinkedIn community and inviting only those that are in the pipe as a way of generating interesting conversations, because we know there's a role for peer-to-peer influencing. So again, what we've tried to look at doing is going to a third party. So no one in the company, no salespeople are allowed in that community. I'm not allowed in that community, but we have a third party that manages it. The brand's associated to the community. And what we do is we just seed conversations in. And actually what happens is there's a natural evolution of the conversation, because there's a lot of peer-to-peer influencing going on. Individuals, talk about their pain points in that closed community environment. And in a 3-month period, we saw that community grow to 3,000. And what was interesting, although we seeded it with the initial pipeline contributors, it was their network that were beginning to sort of like really amplify the message. And that's where you can have an influence on accelerating the sales cycle.